AITA for canceling on family vacation after my newly widowed mom decides to bring her new boyfriend? My dad lost his 1.5-year battle with cancer 1 year ago, April 2022, at only 62 years old. He and my mom were married for 31 years. The few months before my dad got sick, he and my mom were not on great terms and were contemplating divorce. However, through my dad's diagnosis and extreme ups and downs of treatment, they came together, squashed some of their issues, and my mom was there to care for my dad every step of the way. I miss him every day. Me and my mom had always been pretty close, but since my dad died, I feel like I'm seeing and talking to her less and less these days. It makes me sad. In August of 2022, 4 months after my dad passed, my mom started seeing someone. She'd call him her friend, slip in mentions of him in conversation. But I personally wanted nothing to do with him, still don't. I thought it was too soon and told her so. Everyone grieves differently, and dating after losing a spouse is hard, but conversations I've attempted with this guy and the chemistry between them has been super awkward. Emo. I feel like she's disregarding any feelings or pushback that me, my sister and extended family have about this relationship. Large extended family, all very close-knit. She has now starting bringing him to events and parties, and there is an awkward vibe when he's around. Nobody wants to say it out loud. This past week, he showed up unexpectedly at our family Easter party at my parents' house. My mom knew he was coming and did not mention to anyone. Following tradition, we stood in prayer before we ate dinner, and my uncle prayed out loud for those who we have lost, and I felt so awkward that my mom's boyfriend was there, holding hands with my family as we talked about my dad, in my dad's house, almost only a year to the day that he died. We're now booking flights for a large family vacation in June. Condo has already been booked for months, and my mom casually mentioned at Easter that she's bringing her boyfriend. I didn't hear this at the time and found out later from a cousin. I immediately called and told her my feelings about him going. I don't want him to, and she completely changed the subject and did not acknowledge what it told her at all. Not to mention, we had decided to leave a day early to save money on flights, but now that her boyfriend is going, it will actually cost me more because we will no longer be splitting the costs that we originally planned, since they will be doing things separately. Money is not the problem though. It's now principal to me. Of the 20 family members that will be on this trip, not one person really wants him to bother, except her. He will be staying in the Samacondo, and we are going to have to tiptoe around this awkward situation for an entire week while we should be relaxing and enjoying family time together. AITA for wanting to cancel on the family vacation and or stick to my guns about not wanting her boyfriend to go even though she already booked his flight. AITA for yelling at my ex and telling her to stop trying to make our kids perform for her after the death of her husband. My ex-wife and I share 2 children. Our daughter is 13 and our son is 11. She was remarried for 7 years and has 2 children with her late husband. He died a week ago. My kids were not close to the man. He was a hard ass, and the kids found him overly strict, and I agree, and they didn't like being around him. The relationship at best was strained, but they confided in me over the years that they hoped their mom would leave them. She loved the guy though, and when he died last week she was a mess. Our kids were with me when it happened and she wanted to see them, so I brought them over. They comforted their mom and she told them, repeatedly, it was okay to cry, it was okay to miss him, Thathy, we're all going to miss him. The kids said nothing. She kept repeating it. I told her I thought the kids got it. When the kids saw their mom again, she was halfway through planning the funeral and asked if they would be able to do a reading or something for the funeral. The kids said they wouldn't be able to. She was with them a while and then said, since they weren't crying much, maybe they could take a reading and see how they did on the day. Kids told me about it when I spoke to them, and they asked if I could talk to their mom. I told my ex not to force the reading. The funeral day came. I showed up for my kids. They were hanging back with me a lot, and they told me their mom kept watching them, which I witnessed myself. For the funeral I sat behind them since she wouldn't let them sit with me. She told us that all her husband's kids should be seated up front, and I didn't have the heart to tell her they weren't his kids on the day of her husband's funeral when she was such a mess. So I bit my tongue and supported my kids. It was after the service when everything went down. The kids came to sit in my car for a while and we were laughing about something. Ex came over and asked how they could be laughing when they had just buried their stepdad, and why did they show no grief at all over the loss of the man who was part of their lives for 7 years. She said it was almost like they were glad he was gone. She told them they should have been looking way more somber after Hepist. She told them if they really didn't, Karevi clearly needed help because her husband loved them. I stepped in and told her to lay off the kids, they were kids. She told me to stop interfering in how she parents our kids. My daughter ended up getting mad at her mom and told her she wasn't sad he was gone. He was an ass and she had always hoped she would leave him. She stormed off and my son followed. X was going crazy and I yelled and told her to cut it out and to stop trying to make our kids perform a grieving routine over her husband. I told her they were trying to support her and she should be proud of them for that. She started yelling back at me about what asshole I am, so I walked away. AITA. ETA more details on why my kids had issues with him. He spoke to them like they were soldiers and he was their commanding officer. That was how he spoke to his own kids too. Barking orders at them. Also very strict on how they sat and stood, posture. Was very tough on them regarding what extracurricular activities they wanted to do. He had his own ideas of what kids should do and my son especially wasn't interested in the sport aspect and that was not what my ex's late husband liked to hear. He also didn't believe kids should be helped with homework beyond kindergarten and did not like how the kids would react to seeing me during exchanges. He believed kids should act civilized at all times, and them taking off running and jumping into my arms was something he did not approve of and cited to them, though not in front of me after I told him it was what we do. AITA for not telling my boyfriend that I speak his language? My boyfriend, Jake, M29, and I, F27, have been seeing together for a few months now. Dave is Mexican-American but he's currently working in Berlin where I am from. I've heard him speak Spanish on the phone many times and inquired about this but he's never asked me if I speak it and it just felt weird to mention it when he didn't seem to care enough to ask if I spoke any other languages apart from German and English. Because of that he's never really found out I speak Spanish despite me quite literally watching a telenovela before bed quite a few times. It kind of stings but it is what it is. I never eavesdropped on by his conversations though. His friend from the US was visiting him and I was meant to joking them for dinner. When I did, they were speaking in Spanish and his friend asked, in Spanish, if I speak it or should they switch to English only. My boyfriend said, again, in Spanish, nah, she's a gringa, she doesn't speak it. Which kind of annoyed me because he never even asked to I replied to his friend, in Spanish, try it I do in fact speak it. Jake got angry and red. He didn't say anything in front of his friend but on the way home, after dropping his friend off at the hotel, he started shouting how I humiliated him and that I'm AmItheAsshole for hiding it. I told him it's best if he went to his flat and we would talk when he calms down. He hasn't changed his mind and still thinks I'm an asshole and I should apologize. I told my friends and they're split on it and I'm not sure anymore. Am I the asshole for not telling him? AITA for not letting my buddy's girl bring her dog into my pool party. I, 25M, live in a place where it was warm enough out that a pool party was mildly feasible. Cold in the water but great otherwise. Invited a bunch of friends over to my house. We swam, grilled, watched the Masters, until the rain delay, drank. It was a great time except for something I may have come across as an asshole for. I kinda hate dogs and don't want them anywhere around me. I'm definitely not letting it in my house. My friends know this, my girlfriend knows this. A buddy's new girl, who I had never met, came to the party. But she brought her 15 to 20 pound dog. She introduces herself and I just pause, and go, yeah, that thing is not coming inside. She goes, I'll take it through the side gate. I shoot that down too. She asks what she should do with her dog. I just say take it home. I tell her I hate dogs and that my buddy should have told you before you got this far. My buddy chimes in and says it's well behaved, she would hold it for most of the time and he didn't think it'd be that big of a deal. I'm appalled, and just say you should have known better. I say sorry, I'm not letting it in and it's probably best to take it home. We stood in awkward silence and they left and didn't come back. My buddy was texting me, calling me an asshole, complaining I wasn't friendly at all and how rude I was. I'm not letting a dog in my house, I don't care who you are. Am I the asshole for that? AITA for telling my parents that if they won't tell me the truth, I'll assume the worst of them. Sue my 14F family totally exploded while I was in spring break 2 weeks ago. I went on a trip with my grandparents and came back to my mom moved out and a serious sit-down talk about them divorcing. It's not exactly a surprise because they've both been acting weird and shady for a while but like that's not what I was expecting to come back to and they could have let me unpack first at least. They asked me if I had any questions and I asked them which one cheated because that was my first thought. They got super uncomfortable and said that the reasons between them were private. I said not when it means I suddenly lost my family over it and they owe me at least some reason that this is happening and we don't love each other anymore, doesn't cut it. You don't just stop loving someone for no reason. That's dumb. So what? They said that was all I needed to know and we need to talk about how the living situation was going to work and everything. I told them that I don't want to live with either of them if they're going to be like that. Everyone has been mad since then and my mom came over to talk it out last night. They still don't want to tell me why. I told them both that if they were going to hide stuff, I'll just make up my own worst case and go with that. Since mom left, it can't be her fault. Since it's her fault, I won't live with her or go see her. She got upset and said that was unfair and it wasn't her fault. I told her to give me the real reason then or just deal with it. My dad said I was out of line and I said that it can all be his fault then and Samadil. That started an argument between the two of them, but I'm holding my own. Pretty sure at least one of them will crack and tell me what happened soon so I can decide how I feel about it. I don't need like graphic details but a simple, someone cheated, or, mom is a secret lesbian, don't tell anyone, or, we've both really changed a lot and don't want the same things, would help. If one of them did something bad I want to know. If they won't own up or explain why there are no bad guys, they can both be the bad guy. I had to talk to my school counselor today and she said that it's totally understandable but playing them against each other is going to hurt everyone so AITA. Edit. Okay, I'm top. That's okay. I did some digging on my own tonight and I know pretty much what happened now. I don't feel bad about being an auto Oz, thanks.